near the town of New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept coming. One night when the yellow was fire. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we looked down the river and we see the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drum. They stepped so high and they made their bugles ring while we stood beside our coffin and we didn't say a thing. Oh, we said we'd take them by surprise. If we didn't fire a musket, then we looked them in the eyes. We held our fire till we see their faces fell, then we opened up our squirrel cause it really gave them hell. We fired our guns and the British kept coming, but there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we fired our cannon till the barrel melted down, so we grabbed an alligator and we fought another round. We filled his head with many balls, powdered it behind, and when we tested the powder off, the gator lost his mind. Well, we marched back to town in our dirty ragged pants, and we danced all night with pretty girls from France. We couldn't understand them, but they had the sweetest charms, and we understood them better when we got them in our arms. We fired our guns and the British kept coming, but there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Fired our guns and the British kept coming, but there wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
It's not the school's official choir, but just some leader-type kid who got this group together. And so I said, well, do you know any freedom songs? And I put down the guitar and I said, how about walking and talking with my mind and freedom?
would fall asleep on stage. And Miss Doyle, as we knew her, they said, what are we going to do? I said, well, when the show comes, I'll probably stay awake. Well, we can't take a chance. We're going to send you back into the cellar to make fireworks. That's what the part of Paul did, the father. He made fireworks in the cellar. So they got me off stage back and then brought me back on so I wouldn't fall asleep on stage. Well, that was the beginning of it. And you become the host for the restaurant in St. Petersburg, Florida. If you know St. Petersburg, it's for old folks. It was the green benches and all that kind of thing. And I became the host, and I became a celebrity host. I could tell people's names when they left the restaurant. They would leave, go out the door, and I'd say goodbye, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or whatever their name was. Then they'd be halfway up the block and they'd come back and say, do you know us? Do we know you? And I said, well, you're the Smiths, aren't you? Yes. Well, and this happened over and over again. The newspapers got a hold of it and tested me, and they came, and I could call people by name. And it wasn't difficult, folks. In those days, every man wore a hat. And when they came in, they put their hat on the rack. And every hat in it stamped the man's name. And while they were eating, I'd look into the hat, get the name, and remember when they left and call people by their names. In that time, Miss Shuler, Miss Evelyn, read about it in a newspaper that we were performing at Highlands University. And she knew Dr. Johnson down there, who booked the shows, and she called it, and he said, yeah, I got them through Prior Men's Agency, gave her the date, and she, in longhand, wrote a letter to the agency and said, if ever those kaleidoscope players, she never could pronounce kaleidoscope. To her dying day, she called this kaleidoscope. If ever those kaleidoscope players came through again, we have this old theater, and we might like to have them come to raise some money to help pay for the piano, the grand piano this time. Being a good agent, he remembered that the next year, and we were doing Androcles and the Lion, Shaw, and booked us into the Shuler Theater, I think, for $200. That was the show. And we did, and we came, and we played the show in the Shuler, and Miss Shuler ran the museum, which is the Shuler House, where Rick Trice lives. That was the museum at that time. And she had a reception for us. Miss Shuler's receptions were notorious. She got a cake, and what wasn't eaten of the cake, she put it in the freezer and saved for the next reception. Everybody in town knew it, but at any rate, that's a sideline. While we were at the reception in the front room there of the Shuler House on 4th and Rio Grande, right? The Trice House now. A couple of the men in town, John Lackey, Leon Rubin, a few people, got me off in a corner and said, you know, this is a good thing. We have a racetrack here, but we don't have anything to do at night except drink. And what would it take to bring your kaleidoscope players back here and do some more shows, not just pass through with one show? And I said, money. And they said, how much? I said, I haven't any idea. Well, where are you going tomorrow? Well, we're going to Highlands University. Dr. Smoker said, I have a meeting. This was a Tuesday night, Wednesday. I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to Las Vegas. Could you send your company on, and we'll call a meeting here in the morning, and you talk to us. Can you bring us a budget? And I said, yeah, I guess. And so I can remember the motel. I can remember the room that I was in. The motel has been torn down. There's a Sonic there now. Remember that motel? What was it? Melody Lane? No, I don't remember. Forget the name. remember sitting on the floor using the bed as a desk, trying to figure out, we didn't have little calculators either, had to do all this adding and subtracting about how much money. So Dr. Smoker came and picked me up and brought me to the International Room at the International State Bank. Joe DeLisio, Charles DeLisio, Leon Rubin. There were 17 businessmen that he had rounded up by that time, 10 o'clock in the morning, to hear my presentation. And I talked to them, and Lois Donati was there. Lois was president of the Federated Women's Club that brought us to Andrew Trees in the Line, as a matter of fact. And there were 17 business people there, and I laid it out that we would ask our agent to end us in Raton. That would be the last show, whatever we were going to tour. And we would do 3 more shows. And I would send out a few more people because there was no scenery, there was no lights, there was nothing. There were burlap curtains, folks, in the Shuler Theater. Burlap, except for the front curtain was green with gold fringe on it. But the legs and the back curtain were burlap, brown burlap curtains. And I gave them a figure. They thought about it and said, we can do that. Reminds me of a chorus line. I can do that. I remember the boy says, I can do that when he sees his sister dancing. At any rate, they decided that they could do it. And John Smoker came up with the idea that he would go around town to businessmen and they would guarantee me, I think it was $3,300 for 4 weeks of shows, or something like that, for a whole company. And we had to build scenery, etc., etc. And that he would get 100 business people, each to put up $9 in case of a loss, no, up to $100 in case of a loss. And that summer we came, and he had to collect $9 from each one of these guys that put up money. Now, I think it's 30-some of them, I forget. At any rate, we did come back the next summer, and that was our first full summer. We did 4 shows in 4 weeks. And that was Kaleidoscope. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. But there I was, sitting in the airplane in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd just been to the Western Arts Convention, and I was coming back to Colorado Springs. I was in seat A, you know, that's the one by the window. I was looking out the window and watching them load luggage onto the next plane. And all of a sudden, there it was, my bag. I saw it, this big blue behemoth. It was a bag, not my luggage. It was the exhibit, the display unit I use in my exhibit. It was very large, bright blue, and it was being handled, and they were wondering how to put it on the run with the track going up into it. And I screamed out, that's my bag! That's my bag! And I rang for the stewardess, as we called them in those days, and she says, what's the matter? And I said, that's my bag, over there, that's my bag. And she said, a lot of bags look alike. And I said, not that one. That one is mine, that blue thing right there is my display unit. And she believed me, and she called, and it was already loaded. They got the bag, and they brought it back and put it on my plane. And I thought later on, when someone said I ought to be telling some of the stories, the experiences I've had in theater for 60-some years, that the title would be, That's My Bag. He introduced me to the fact of Jimmy Driftwood and the Ozark folk music, which I knew little or nothing about. I did know the Battle of New Orleans, that song. I remember driving out my driveway in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, going to the Stillman, to the college, to see a basketball game. And I was going down the hill around the curve, and on came this record on the radio. 1814, it took a little trip, along with Colonel Johnson, took a little bacon in, it took a little beans. And I thought, this is the greatest song I've ever heard. I pulled over to the side of the road, I didn't want to miss it, and when it was over, I honked the horn because I couldn't applaud, I just honked. I thought, this is great. I really loved it, and didn't know that within a couple of years I'd be meeting this man that wrote it, Jimmy Driftwood, a folklorist, school teacher, who wrote these songs as history lessons for his students. The only way he could keep his, as he called them, big old boys, interested, he taught in a one-room schoolhouse, 8 grades, and the big old boys, the 7th and 8th grade, weren't interested in history, but they were interested in hearing the songs. So he wrote the songs, and he wrote Battle of New Orleans and so forth. And the biggest ego of any person I've ever met, but the most generous person, just wonderful. And he very talented, but this monumental ego that he had. And he never moved to Nashville. He would be on Grand Ole Opry, go down and come back home to his ranch up in Mountain View, Arkansas. So from Panama City, because they said, this show isn't going to happen unless you come up here. So I went to Mountain View and lived with the Okies, the Ozark Okies, for 3 years. Happen unless you come up here. So I went to Mountain View and lived with the Okies, the Ozark Okies, for 3 years. I just keep coming out.
July 23rd, 1963. He was with the Kaleidoscope Players, Andrew Cleese, and the Lion. So the theater was neglected and had been left dark for about 10 years. And little did we know that that night would begin a renaissance, not only of this theater, but of performing arts in our area. And it would also start an association with a man for over 60 years who has affected thousands and thousands of people with his passion and his talent. And we are here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shuler Theater, a tribute to our producer, director, actor, promoter, impresario, Bill Fegan. Now, for those of you that know Bill, know that he really wouldn't like what we're doing here tonight. No. Even though he affected thousands of people and knew so many talented and intelligent people throughout the world, many of them here tonight embody him, a few in spirit. But he had an affable way of just accepting everyone, and everyone accepted him. And so with Bill Fegan, it was quite a journey. I think we all knew what a genuine man he was. So as soon as the curtain goes up, we'll continue, because the curtain went up for Bill Fegan on March the 9th of 1927 in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Bill Fegan was born of William S. and Marla Fegan, and his early childhood his early elementary school, he was interested somewhat in performing arts, etc., but not too much. It wasn't until he left high school and went to Juniata College that he actually became hooked. The passion began for him. So, we are waiting for the curtain. By the way, you know, it was a mask mandate that was deemed by our governor for the state of New Mexico. We've been wearing masks in the theater for thousands of years. All right, here we go. Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. All right. Number 39, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so the curtain went up for William S. Fegan, Palmyra, Pennsylvania, March 9th. Now, he really was not that interested in performing arts, but he did perform, as I said, in various shows. So, after graduation, well, we'll talk about that, but I found this interesting, and I just wanted to read this. It is a newspaper article from the Palmyra newspaper, 1944, when Bill was 17. And it says, "Boys sacrifice aids neighbor. Skin given by friend to aid injured boy." A 13-year-old Palmyra, Pennsylvania schoolboy in high spirits yesterday following a skin grafting operation in which he hoped would soon get him back with the gang after 8 months in bed. And equally hopeful was 17-year-old William Fegan, a neighbor in the same Pennsylvania town who volunteered to have his skin taken from both legs above the knees to his hips in order to speed young Lindell's recovery. You see, I just live a couple of blocks away from Lee, back in Palmyra, said young Fegan, sitting in a wheelchair. So when I heard that he was in bad shape, that someone had to give new skin, well, I wanted to do that. What I could do to help, that's all. Yeah, he was a generous man with his time and with his efforts and with his talents, that is for sure. Again, after graduation, he earned his BA degree from Juniata College in Pennsylvania. He was chosen to be the voice of Juniata for the weekly radio broadcast, his voice deemed the most distinctive. After graduating from college, he was 21, went to Florida then, and came across the Vagabond Players, a professional theater company, wintering in St. Petersburg. He joined that company, and that began his professional side of the business, that business which lasted over 70 years. Bill earned his master's degree in speech and hearing from the University of Alabama, and while in Tuscaloosa, he began directing shows at Stillman College, a nearby small African-American school. He joined the Stillman faculty in the 60s, became a big part of the civil rights movement at the time. You heard it on his Bill Ode to Overture. It was Joan Baez saying that in her documentary, How Sweet the Sound, it was an impressive job that Stillman and Bill did to bring two people together, and that was through performing arts. Bill organized that touring company, the Kaleidoscope Players, and in 1963, the Kaleidoscope Players presented a performance of Androcles and the Lion here in the Shuler Theater. It was so successful, you heard Bill say, and you probably know the story, they returned the next summer, 4 shows. In '65, the company moved to Raton permanently. Then they were named the official State Theater of New Mexico by Governor David Cargo in 1971, I believe. Won an award for Outstanding Theater in the Rocky Mountain region and a world tour for the entire U.S. and Canada. They did. Now, we all know one of Bill's passions was for youth and children's theater. Hundreds of performances, thousands of kids entertained, and he knew the power that performing arts and theater had to heal, to nurture, and to build self-confidence and self-acceptance. So, with the thought of youth and young people, a special treat tonight, a young lady who agreed to come and perform for us. She performed in several of our summer musicals for Raton Choral Society. And so I'm going to bring out Zoe Elliott, if you would welcome Zoe.
Thank you. Hello. I just want to thank you for having me perform tonight. I grew up on this stage, and Bill has always been such a huge part of that. And I'm honored to be a part of this celebration of his life tonight. Thank you. The sun will come out tomorrow, bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick up my chin and grin and say, oh, the sun will come up tomorrow, but you gotta hang on till tomorrow. Come what may, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. The sun will come out tomorrow, bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick up my chin and grin and say, tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. one more song I'll be playing is Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
That I've heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow sky, a blue that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops, that's where you'll find me. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops, that's where you'll find me. Somewhere over
That's Bill, I think. Indeed, we're not in Kansas, we're in heaven. Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Zoe. You know, Bill talked the talk, and he walked the walk. He was very religious and spiritual, and attended church on a regular basis, accepting all, no matter what. And the arts and performing arts were very similar to missionary work. He brought children, adults, outsiders, the handicapped, special needs, even incarcerated prisoners and others who felt ostracized. He brought them into the fold to discover themselves and God through the performing arts. So, it is only right that we next have as a speaker, Tim Sexton is coming up, Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. Bill was a member of that church, attended it regularly, and so we asked Tim Sexton to please come up and say some words.
It's always dangerous to invite a preacher to say some words. But Bill Fegan, it is a great honor, Billy, for me to be here. I remember that first time Barbara and I came up to be at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. We were specifically invited by Bill and a couple of other people and asked to come and be a part of the community here. And it was that great gift that Bill had that enabled him to bring us in. And not only did he bring us in, he showed us around. And it was a great and wonderful experience to begin to know this great man and the faith that he had. And his real presence at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in this town made a huge difference for the church itself and for everyone who came there. You will hear time and time again how Bill was open to everyone. It was a big part of what was happening there. And to be a part of the Episcopal Church, I always teased Bill because he revealed to me one day, he said, you know, when I first came here, I wasn't real enamored with the churches I found. Because he grew up in the Church of the Brethren. And the Church of the Brethren, you have to understand, is one of those special places where it's all about community and fellowship and being together. And their motto is, without works, faith without works is dead. And Bill really believed that. And I think that he chose the Episcopal Church for a number of reasons. The people there, primarily, I think. But I think there was a secret to Bill, too, about why he loved the Episcopal Church. Because I think it had to do with his sense of the performing arts and his sense of what that service that he experienced there was really about in his faith and his faith development. Now you probably don't know, but Bill was actually quite a theologian. His mentor, if you will, even though he never met him in real life, was Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton was an American Trappist monk, a writer, a theologian, a mystic, a poet, a social activist, and a scholar of comparative religion. And I think he really served as Bill's role and mentor. And there were three quotes from Thomas Merton that I think really capture the spirit of Bill Fegan. They come from Thomas Merton. Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time. We know Bill's love of art and what it was all about and how he learned to express that in his own life, in his own way, and in his faith especially, that he was able to share that piece of his understanding of what God in his life was all about. and how he lived. Thomas Merton said, "If a man is to live, he must be all alive, body, soul, mind, heart, and spirit." Very few people that I know that are all alive as Bill Fegan was, in all aspects of life, and what he brought with him to be shared with each person he encountered. I remember having a conversation with Bill about dying, about death in general, and he said, "You know, Merton had some good words to say about that." Of course. Thomas Merton said, "Death is someone you see very clearly with eyes in the center of your heart. Eyes that see not by reacting to light, but by reacting to a kind of a chill from within the marrow of your own life." I think those three things really captured Bill Fegan and his sense of faith and what it was about. And his love for God, his love for people, and his love for living a life that really demonstrated that all three were important to him. The church was important to him. Bill talked always about how he wanted it filled for his funeral, and we're working hard to continue to make that happen at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. And this is not a memorial service per se here tonight, but I would be remiss if we didn't remember him in that way in our prayers and our thoughts. And Bill would love for you to come on Sunday to Holy Trinity Episcopal Church and join us in the worship, which this Sunday will be specifically aimed at remembering and honoring Bill Fegan. And in the meantime, a little exposure to Episcopalianism. Pray with me, please. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you this day, Bill. We thank you for giving him to us, his family and friends, to know and to love as a companion on our earthly pilgrimage. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see in death the gate of eternal life, so that in quiet confidence we may continue our course on earth until by your call we are reunited with those who have gone before. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We had a funeral once at the church, and Bill commented to me afterwards that the scripture that we used that day, which was the scripture from John 14, you probably know it. It's the one where Jesus says to his disciples who are gathered around and trying to listen to him and understand and comprehend what he's talking about leaving and why and what that's all about. And Jesus says to them, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." Bill said, "You know, those lines are really for us today, because our hearts are troubled." And I think this whole sense of dying is a troublesome business to all of us. And we miss out on the parts that really were important in the life that Jesus tried to share with all of his disciples and continued to confront them time and time again with that mantra of do not be afraid. Do not live your life in fear, but know in your heart of hearts that there is more to being alive than there is to dying. I think Bill really captured that. He captured that sense. He captured this whole idea that we are about living in the midst of dying. One time when I used the words, he picked up on them immediately and said, "That's exactly right." Because what I said was that Jesus was more interested in living through death than in dying. Bill Fegan, a man for our time, a man who lived his life as if it really mattered. And indeed it did. And continues to. In a few minutes, you'll have an opportunity to share your story and relationship with Bill. And I hope that it becomes a part of the mantra that you continue to use time and time again as you meet people. And that this memory, this remembrance, this, as Billy calls it, confession of our experiences with Bill will live on, bringing him alive. Pray with me. Into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Bill. Acknowledge him, we humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a sinner of your own redeeming. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints of light. And all the people together said, Amen. Amen. All the people together said, Amen. Thank you. Remember Bill, come join us on Sunday as we celebrate the memorial of his life at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church.
Tim Sexton, thank you very much. In the program tonight, Bill's tribute program, you notice on the opening page there's Psalm 23, and it's a little hard to read, little tiny, but that card I found with his father's name, so that was used at his father's funeral, the Psalm 23 that had his dad's death notice. So we just also included that in the program tonight. Well, did you like the music as you walked in? Rick, Linda Trice, Dre, and Jill Solano. They have been connected with the Shuler and with Bill Fegan for years and years. And Dre and Jill traveled a long way to come here tonight to do this, so we're going to put them to work again. And I'd ask them please to come up. Oh, they are. The magic of theater. All right. They are going to sing Amazing Grace.
Like me.
acoustics in this theater are amazing. Thank you so much. I guess we're not going to sing Do Re Mi. Doesn't matter. We thought it would be appropriate.
We'll do something.
Okay. We thought it would be appropriate to have a little sing-along. Bill loved choral work and loved song. So, again, now is the time. We're going to go ahead and turn up the house lights, please, Lucas. Testimonials, toasts, and roasts, and again, confessions. If they're past the statute of limitations, please. So, we would ask people either to come up here, or we can take this mic and pass it down too. That would be acceptable too as well. I do know that, is HM here? HM, right there, okay. You want this down there or up here? Come on. HM Burleson. Recent friend of Bill's, was there quite a bit there in the last few months, so showed to be a good friend. So.
Well, I made a few notes. Actually, I wrote it down because if I just started talking about Bill, we'd be here till sunup. No, you don't want that. Probably be some repetition in some of the things that everyone's going to say tonight, so bear with us because he was special to every one of us, and we need to express, if we may, if we're able, how important he was and the things that he did in our particular lives. William Samuel Fegan was born March 9, 1927. Passed to a better place January 29, 2021 at the age of 94. In his early years, he lived in Palmyra, Pennsylvania, in a duplex with his parents, William M. Fegan and Mary Miller Fegan, one brother and one sister, and both sets of grandparents. His mother died when he was very young. His father joined the Army soon after, and Bill was left pretty much on his own. We're here tonight to reflect on his life, remember him, honor him, and celebrate the achievements of this remarkable man. Bill was a household name in Raton. Everyone knew him in some small way. Many knew him in some big ways. He was an active member of the community. Civic responsibilities were high on his list of priorities. He served on several boards, member of the Rotary Club, and actively served in his church in several responsible positions. But for the last 40, and I know now it's 60, I have trouble remembering that long, give or take, his passion was the Shuler Theater. There's no denying Raton, New Mexico is a better place because of Bill Fegan. Most of you are here tonight with a spouse or a loved one. Some of you are here with a friend. Some of you may even be here with your best friend. If that's the case, think about how lucky and blessed you are, because many people go through life never having a best friend. We are truly blessed if we have 2 or 3 best friends in our lifetime. Bill had the qualities and the character to be a best friend. I spent many hours with him in his office and in the car, traveling to the theaters in this area to see shows and plays. We traveled together to Santa Fe, Albuquerque, El Paso to church conferences and conventions. The car was my favorite place to be with Bill because of the hours upon hours of uninterrupted time to listen to his stories, his adventures, his accomplishments, and his disappointments. He never once bragged about his achievements, and there were many. I never once heard him put someone down because they were different, or because of a difference of opinion. Everyone was equal in Bill's eyes, and no matter how tough the situation might be, he kept his cool and his position and his positive, upbeat attitude. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all do that? I remember one time sitting in his office and we'd been swapping stories, and I used the word irrelevant. And after I got through with my little story, Bill looked at me squarely in the eyes and he said, "You know, there's no such word as irrelevant." And I said, "Well, no, I've heard that word all my life." He scooted up in his chair and he got in and he looked me squarely in the eyes and he said, "There's no such word as irrelevant." And that was the end of that conversation. My first mother-in-law told me, if you find a friend in an older person, you have found a true friend. I was surrounded by older folks when I was a small child until I left home. Parents, both sets of grandparents, a number of great aunts and uncles, and just family friends growing up in a small rural community, and I learned a great deal from them. All knowledge does not come from the classroom or from books. Much of our learning about life comes from those folks who have lived it. I think if I had a few more years to hang out with him, I would have earned a PhD. Bill didn't know much about cars. He knew where to put the key, and that was about it. I was with him when he bought his last car. He just had to have an electric car. He just thought about it, and his thoughts were, what in the world will they come up with next? He loved his Toyota Prius, but he never let me drive it. He focused most of his time and his energy on making the world a better place. He achieved that goal. The world is a better place because of Bill Fegan. Well, where am I? While he was in the nursing home for rehab, Bill got a letter from a young man who spent some time growing up here in Raton and was actively involved in the Shuler Theater. I want to share with you a small portion of that letter. And I quote, "I remember when I was younger being absolutely mesmerized by your stories. The life you're living is amazing, grandiose in nature. It's taken me a few years, but I've decided that regardless of what I do, and whether or not I'm successful, that's how I will measure my life. Not in dollars, dollar signs, or jobs, but rather in how I help people, and how people help me. I'd like to live a life full, like you do. Your experience and stories are enough to fill a library, and I am incredibly grateful I got to hear even a fraction of them. Thank you for giving this outlook to me. Intentional or not, it has really helped me figure out where I fit in this life. Thank you for everything. You're a great man. Truly an example to strive after. I will never forget all you've done for me and my family over the years. I am grateful Raton still has you to keep things going right, on the right track, with everything happening up there. You'll always be my best friend. Love, Spencer." I'm almost through. What is friendship? Friendship is one of the hardest things in the world to explain. It's not something you learn in school, but if you haven't learned the meaning of true friendship, then you really haven't learned anything. That's a quote by Muhammad Ali. Friendship isn't about who you have known the longest. It's about who walked into your life and said, I'm here for you, and proves it. And what is a friend? More than a father, more than a brother. A friend is a traveling companion with whom you can conquer the impossible. Friendship marks a life even more deeply than love. Love risks degenerating into obsession. Friendship is never anything but sharing. My point in saying all of these things about Bill Fegan is simply this. Bill Fegan was and will forever be my best friend. I am a better person for having known him.
Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow. We had a lot of people drive a lot of miles to come here tonight to honor Bill. Spencer and Dave Wilden are a couple of those, and they are in the back there. Does this look familiar? Bill's crooked old cane. We're going to give this to Spencer too. He gave it to him originally. Where'd you get this?
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs, okay. I see the Bells are here. Cruz and Pat Bell from Amarillo. Great friends of Bill's, indeed. Uh-oh, I started it, didn't I? Uh-oh, started naming names. Okay, one little testimonial, a couple of little testimonial things. I have a friend who I graduated with, and he was, in school he had a speech impediment. So Bill had his degree in speech therapy, and so Bill helped him with his stutter, and then Bill lassoed him into coming and being in one of his plays too. So, and went through all of that, and can speak well now, and because of being on stage, and the confidence that brings. So, anyone else? Would anyone else like to say anything? Pam.
It's hard for me to walk.
Here, I got a cane. All right, I feel like the price is right.
One of my greatest memories of Bill Fegan is we lived across the street from him, my family, Annie and Raton, and we lived right across the street. And my sister Nancy was one of the classical players for a year or two. And she was a great actress. But he used to come across the street and visit us. And I was a little bitty tot back then. And he would come over and he'd say, Pam. I said, yes, sir. The Sandman's calling you. It's time to go upstairs because the Sandman's calling you. I think he wanted to chat with my parents. It was an easy way to get rid of me. But we'll always love Bill. I knew him all through his life here at Raton. I used to always speak to him when I saw him. He's really missed in this town. So, but thank you, Bill, for giving me that great memory of Mr. Sandman. He was a great guy. Thank you.
Any other words? Oh, okay, here we go. Is that Tom Evans?
It is Tom.
Tom Evans! Welcome home!
We're in from New York City.
City.
Man, oh man, New York City!
I taught at Ole Miss, and Bill Fegan came by selling concerts, and he said, I need someone to build scenery for me in a production I'm doing in Florida. And I met him, and he met my wife, Barbara Farah. Stand up, Barbara. So he hired me to build scenery and act some, and he hired Barbara to be an actress and be the company clerk. And at the end of the season, which was a failure economically, but was a great success emotionally, culturally, artistically, he made Barbara and me both members of Equity. He made one terrible mistake and one great triumph. Barbara was a natural to be a member of Equity. I was not very good. Much better to only say that. Okay, that's prologue. That's prologue. In 1968, I was teaching at Hanover College, and I was in New York City with a group of students seeing plays. And every night after we'd see a play on Broadway, we'd go down to the Haymarket on 8th Avenue and drink and carouse and have a great time. And after about the fourth night, I said to Barbara, I can't do this anymore. I got to go back to the hotel and go to sleep. Which I did. And the phone rang, and it was Bill Fegan calling from New Mexico at whatever time it was here. And it was after midnight in New York. And he said, I want you to come to Raton, New Mexico, and design and build scenery for me. I want Barbara to come and be the leading lady. And he said, what you have to understand if you're coming to New Mexico is that brown is beautiful. I was from Mississippi, where green is what everybody thinks of. But New Mexico, brown became part of our lives, and we came here year after year after year and did so many plays and had such a wonderful, wonderful time that we almost felt like we were natives of Raton, New Mexico. Thank you, Bill Fegan, for opening Raton, New Mexico to Barbara Farah and Tom Evans. What a great time it was. And one of the people I directed was Steve Simpson, who has got to say something about that first.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Set you up, baby.
Yeah.
Well, look, he's an actor, he's going on stage.
I would go all the way up there. I grew up on a Dust Bowl farm. I've never been to the theater.
Hold the microphone against your face if you're going to talk to me.
And Bill evidently went around to these little towns trying to find some slave labor. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll try that out. I'll go up there and do that. And this place, oh wow, this place, it beat plowing. Just no comparison. So that you're talking about, I spent 6 summers here. I did a lot of plays here. If you think about, some of us have a chance in life to change lives for the better. Bill did that for me because he talked me into coming here. I did a lot of painting and carpentry work and lighting and all of that stuff. And in fact, he asked me in '68 to come be the assistant to the tech director. So I showed up at our shop. I'm not sure where it was somewhere over here, the first morning. And this guy comes up and says, and what are you doing here? You're in too many plays. You can't even work for me because you're not going to be able to paint and build scenery and do all that. You're in too many plays. So go back over there and rehearse. 6th summer here that Bill put together after the summer. A few of us as kaleidoscope players went to Chicago and tried out a little thing that we'd done. George Mason was one of them. And we booked, we figured it out that we had done the kaleidoscope, really George Mason and I, on this little tour around the United States, I mean around every high school between Chicago and New Orleans and Pittsburgh and Denver. About 5 million kids doing poetry that Bill had helped us all put together and had directed, and then booked every little high school that you can think of. That was quite a thing. And when that was over, I said, that's it. I'm going to New York. I can't take this anymore. I did go to New York, and Bill came to New York a lot. I spent 23 years there. I did 32 plays in New York, about 1,000 commercials, a bunch of soaps. And in fact, it was like, how did this plow kid from a dirt farm just across the border ever end up in New York and then around the world doing, you know, film stuff? It was just a miracle. And it was because of Bill. I mean, literally, Bill. The first time I had a speaking part in a play here, I was right here. I was, you know, like, I'm supposed to come right down the stage and say something, and I don't remember what the play was, and I don't remember what I said. But I said my lines perfectly in rehearsal. And down the aisle comes this guy that I didn't know that well, because it was just, you know, I didn't have a lot to do with him. I was back there painting. Running down the aisle screaming, and he says, "It's friends! Friends!" And I said, "Yeah, friends, yeah, friends, yeah. I know, I get that." "No, friends!" With passion. It took me about 2 more years to figure out that he was saying friends and I was saying friends, because that's how we talk in Texas. And Bill was a really good friend. Everything that I've heard, that, yeah, amen. So.
What a guy. What a man. Anyway. Were you going to talk?
It appears that I am. How much time do you have?
Well, everyone else is taking their time.
Well, if you haven't figured out, I'm the guy who was referred to as having accommodated or taken over the old Shuler house. So now I know to have a little bit more respect for the front room there where all of this came together to bring the kaleidoscope players. I knew a little bit of the history of that, but I didn't know that plot was hatched in my living room. So we'll have to find the spot there and mark it with a little plaque or something. I feel like I've been on, we've been here we're newcomers. We moved here in 1982. So from almost day one, I've heard from several old-timers in Raton that you're not a local here unless your great-grandparents were born and died here. So I'm not a local, I guess, but we've been here for a long time. And during that time, we've been blessed to be taken into the fold of the theater. I had done some theater down in southeast New Mexico where we came from, and with my little brother, basically was the actor in our family. And I became enamored with set building and painting and that kind of stuff. I never dreamed of being on stage and performing. And I was always helping my little brother do
do some things and do his makeup, and I was learning that kind of stuff. So when I came here, I was kind of backed in the door of the Shuler one day, and basically through the Choral Society productions, and got involved in several of those musicals and plays, to the point where I thought I was all that, and realized real quick when people like Tom Evans and Barbara came to town, and Bill Fegan came back to town after a hiatus and revived the Kaleidoscope Players, that I was anything but all that, because one of the first plays I remember that I was involved with Bill, and I can't remember the name of the play, but I had some bit part, and similar to your story about somebody coming running down the aisle screaming at you, I learned for the first time what the proscenium arch was. Bill asked me to please stop speaking behind the proscenium arch because the audience can't hear a damn thing you're saying. And so I learned quickly what that was, and for those of you who don't know, it's that brown painted thing right there. And if you do deliver your lines beyond it, the audience will not hear what you're saying. And so I learned lessons that way, and became even more of a hack actor after that, just trying to please people like Bill Fegan. You know, I've had the pleasure of working with him. We shared an office space back here for a period of time, working with the Arts Council on some projects, and I got to love him so much because we came in and shared this office space with each other, and Bill would spend his days, and this was just, what, maybe 15, 20 years ago, he would be on his computer all day long. And I thought, oh gosh, he's really into computers. And then social media came into play at some point, and I said, Bill, would you like to learn something about Facebook or get a presence? I'm sure you've got lots of friends all over the world who would love to. Oh, no. He didn't want anything to do with that stuff. And I realized the things that he spent time on his computer was solitaire games. He'd be over there and he would just get totally ballistic if his computer went down. And so I'd have to go boot his computer back up just so he could get back into his solitaire games and the like. So he was a very special mentor to me off and on. And I know with our kids coming up, Jillian and her husband Grayson Solano grew up here in the theater also, like so many of the young people that came up through the ranks, and they still have a lifelong love of the theater, are still very involved in theater in the Omaha area where they live now. And a lot of that is due to people like Bill Fegan and his mentoring of that generation, and mentoring of us older hacks that think occasionally that we can do something interesting on stage. And sometimes we pull it off, and sometimes we don't. It takes a fine director to be able to corral all the various personalities and make something work on stage. And I'll say this and close. The thing I learned the most from people like Bill Fegan regarding theater is it's an amazing, to put on a play, put on a show of any kind, it's an amazing microcosm of community. We've heard a lot about his love of community and works and things, and giving nature of a community-minded person. And I always love the picture of putting on a play. You bring these disparate people together of different politics, different religions, different backgrounds, and you do this amazing project with each other. Whether you're in the wings or backstage, or whether you're on stage in the floodlights, you put this amazing little thing together. And even if it's an old play that thousands and thousands of other people have done before you, you end up putting your stamp of identity as a small community of players, of artistic people. And whether you're good or hacks or just halfway competent or amazing, you've created something that can't be duplicated, good, bad, or ugly. And those are the memories that I carry of each and every production I've been involved in with Bill and others. And there's a certain stamp and a certain flavor that will never go away. And they've all, over time, become sweet memories, even the ones that were horrific. Things that you were just praying for that last final curtain so you could find something to drink and drown your sorrows. It's an amazing process. This is a jewel. You know, any of you who have been around the world, there's barely anything like the Shuler Theater still existing in the world. And we treasure here in Raton, and hopefully always will, and always keep something of value and interesting going on these boards going forward. And that to me is a big part of the legacy of Bill Fegan.
Bill always said that theater was the ultimate team sport, is what it was. Everybody had their part, and even if you just had one line, dinner is served, if you didn't do that line, then it threw everything else off. So, Tim and Chrissy Bird are here, longtime supporters. TJ is here, TJ Valdez. Where are you living now, TJ?
Monte Vista.
Monte Vista. I'm sorry, do you have another half hour? Should we cut this off? Nope, too late.
So, Bill always was a proponent of having the proper haircut. And I meant to get a haircut before I came here, but I've been working overtime a lot lately, so I didn't get a chance to. Sorry about that. I was in 8th grade, and my choir teacher asked me to try out for Oklahoma. It was the 25th anniversary of the original production. Bill brought in alumni that were in the original cast. I didn't have a character name. I think I was Cowboy number 2. And I did have a line. I don't remember what the line was. Billy was Judd Fry. Judd Fry's dad. Big number for, yeah. And I was hooked. I very much fell in love with the Shuler. I didn't realize it at the time, but Bill laid the groundwork to become a mentor of mine, almost a grandfather figure for me. Marty was the choreographer, Bill was the director. They made a great team. Yeah, and I carried, after that I became sort of a backstage kid. I carried a lot of people's luggage who came in to perform at the Shuler. I carried Arnold Guthrie's luggage when he played here. Michael Martin Murphy, I carried his luggage. I learned about the fly system and the lighting, and I progressed into a life in professional theater for 15 years. I toured all around the world, the country, and it's all thanks to Bill. And even though I'm not working in theater currently, I still owe who I am today in a large part to Bill. And I'll never forget that. And I'm sorry that I didn't tell him that as much as I probably should have. But I'm so happy to be here today, to be in the theater, and to honor Bill, and I thank you all for being here.
We have so many things to be thankful for, and Bill Fegan is one of them. I want to thank the city of Raton too, also. You know, this theater originally was the city office's annex, and The theater, well, the building was the city office. This theater was an afterthought. So for the sum of $55,000, they built this whole place in about 8 months. They laid the cornerstone on August 20th of 1914, and that's why we picked tonight to celebrate Bill, because he belongs as a cornerstone of this theater, that is for sure. Anyone else? Pass this.
Hi, my name is Spencer. Bill was in elementary school. Bill was my best friend. When we first moved here, he gave us a tour of the theater and told us every story he had to tell about it. He told us about Miss Shuler sitting in that box. He told us about when the theater was first renovated and using toothbrushes on all the carvings and the moldings. And over the years, we must have heard those stories about 100,000 times as he gave tours. And he made us feel so welcome so immediately that in elementary school, one of the first few months, we were doing an assignment and the teacher asked us to put on a paper who your best friend was, and I, without hesitation, put Bill Fegan at the Raton Shuler Theater. And it was so for the next years. Bill was special to my family and all of us, I'm sure. And yeah, I should have taken notes like HM. Yeah, it was really something special to sit in the office with Bill and hear him tell his stories. Sorry about this. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we all heard about, I can't remember if it was Serena or Venus Williams' towel, but I'm sure we all heard the story about him at the Open, telling her to keep going and that she could do it, and her giving him his towel, and he draped it over the back chair, and was very proud of it. And this cane, I got him this cane in Colorado Springs, and my parents told me that it was tacky. And that he wouldn't like it, but joke's on them. Yeah, he touched so many lives of so many adults and children all throughout Raton and to the county. Zoe over there has got a daughter. Rock and roll. Yeah, I'm gonna hand the phone back to Billy and I'll share the microphone. Thank you.
The true Rosario is here too as well. Really big supporter. The Gonzaleses, Robert and Eileen. Okay.
Thank you, Billy. As you know, for the last 15 years, we had coffee with Bill every morning at the Arby's. These stories that we've heard about Bill, we've heard them time and time again. I can tell you every one of them. But one of the things that he told us a couple of times, and he was real proud of this, when he was a youngster, him and his brother and his dad were at the breakfast table. And his dad was a heavy smoker, big time. So Bill sat there and figured out how much the cigarettes were at that time and told his dad, and it amazed everybody how much money he was spending on it. And from that day forward, Bill said he called me the professor. Anytime a question came up, he'd tell his other brother, you go ask the professor. And the other thing that he was real proud of, he told me one day, do you know who I graduated with from the University of Alabama? I have no idea. Joe Namath, he said, we're alumni. And let me get back to the story about his beard. He walked in one day to the Arby's and he had the flood on there. And I said, Billy, you forgot to shave this morning. He says, you know what, after all these years, I hate shaving. I'm not going to shave anymore. And I said, are you serious, Bill? He says, yep. And from that day forward, he never shaved because he hated shaving. But Bill, in a way, was a comical. We could sit there and listen to all the stories every day. And his biggest passion was to leave coffee because he had an appointment down here to show the Shuler off to somebody. That was a big, big passion on his part. Either that or he wanted to come down here and play solitaire. But he wouldn't tell him. But he was an excellent friend to us and our family. He helped us out quite a bit. And he was not only a wonderful man, he was a great man. Thank you, Bill.
And he was my best friend.
Wow. Okay.
Bill?
Yes?
Zoe.
Oh, Zoe.
I would like to say some words. First of all, I just want to say thank you, and it's really amazing to see everybody and a lot of familiar faces again in this amazing place just for Bill. I moved here when I was 6.5 to Raton, and I wasn't a sports kid. I like sports, you know? And I remember my mom, and I met Spencer at school in elementary, and he was my bestest friend in school. And my mom said that there was a play, Arabian Nights, at the Shuler Theater, and let's go and audition. And I said, you know what, let's go, let's do it. And that's where Spencer's mom, Gail Wilden, was the director, and I met Bill Fegan. And from there on, I've been here for 12 years. And so many plays we have done for Bill and with Spencer, and the church, he loved the church. And I went to his church at the Episcopalian, and I asked him one year, Bill, it would be an honor to have you as my godfather. And he said yes, and that was the most amazing thing to have. And he's really touched a lot of people in their hearts and has really made a big impact. And I just want to say thank you again for everybody for being here for me today.
Okay. Well, your son is here. Anybody else?
Bill?
Yes. Oh. You had to be on the other side. Okay. Oh, Frank Ferry.
Ferry's dad, I guess everybody knows that anyway. She's been under the weather, couldn't be here tonight, and she just loved Bill as well. So. But she's been in a lot of plays here, loves this Shuler. And there's some shows coming. They're going to do the Life of Patsy Cline. And that's, the show must go on, like Bill would have said. And another thing Bill always said is, I'll see you at the Shuler. So let's remember that and keep doing it. But we'll miss Bill, and I love him as well. He was just a walking encyclopedia, this guy. It's amazing what everything you remember. You know, from way back up to right before he passed away. So he was just an amazing man. So we'll remember Bill. So thanks, everybody.
Any other victims? I was in the audience that night, July 23rd, 1963, for Andrew Cleese in the Lamb. My mom was a member of the Federated Women's Clubs. They came in, they scrubbed all of the coal soot off the leather seats, scrubbed the walls, hung curtains, as you heard Bill say. And I was just amazed. I was mesmerized. And that was my first meeting of Bill Fegan. And from then on, he touched thousands of lives, and mine especially too as well. He would invite me to go down for a martini all the time. And on occasion I would. And, he would also go to the, what is the club at the Pedium Club? Yeah, that was one of his favorite hangouts, that's for sure. Anything else? Anyone else? Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Bill?
Yeah.
Explain the two seats over here.
Oh, these are reserved for Ev Shuler, and the one right next to it is for Bill Fegan. Ev used to always sit in that exact chair. Every performance, not just every show. If there was a show that ran 3 or 4 nights, and she'd come one night, no. She was there for every performance, usually right there. And if someone was in her seat, well, she asked them to move. So. And so now Bill usually sat in the back, a little bit further back, but we thought it would be appropriate to put him right next to Ed this evening.
Yeah, now they're going to be up there.
Now they're up there, that's right, upstage. All right, thank you so much. And I'm going to put the microphone over here, and we'll welcome to the stage a gentleman who has performed at the Shuler. How many times? 2 or 3 or 4?
5.
No, 5? Okay, all right. I was here for the 100th anniversary too. Played our grand piano. By the way, the grand piano is still the original grand piano. That night, Androcles and the Lion, it was a ticket fundraiser also, and they raised $75, and they were ecstatic. They were giddy because they raised so much money. It cost $750, so that's a pretty good bargain. And it's in great shape, except we broke one of the wheels, wheeling it back and forth, but we'll get that replaced. And so, would you please, Peter Simon, would you come to the stage? We'll welcome Peter Simon. The long stick goes in the hole closest. The short stick goes in the hole the farthest.
Thank you very much, Billy. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here this evening, to be invited to be here, and tribute to a great man, a man who dedicated his life to the quality of life for everyone, realizing how important the arts are. To hear and see something beautiful, meaningful, really makes life worthwhile. As we all know, the arts are like a fragile flower, and it needs to be watered to keep going. And that's why it's a pleasure for me to be at the beautiful theater on this wonderful instrument. I'd like to play for you, we heard some wonderful prayers from the minister. Thank you very much. And what I'd like to do is, first of all, play a musical prayer by Franz Liszt, lived in the end of the 1800s. And this is a consolation, meant to console. is here this evening to also pay tribute to Bill. Unfortunately for me, he retired 5 years ago. A little fake. It's been great fun traveling with him, and of course it's great fun for me. Being on stage, this is what I really enjoy doing. Bill liked popular classical music, and I'd like to play a piece that he really enjoyed. It was very popular, first written for orchestra, and it's called Saber Dance by Cacciaturian. Cacciaturian first wrote this for the piano. Bill loved musicals, and I play excerpts from 3 musicals that he really enjoyed. of the three-penny opera that he really enjoyed was a great piece called Mac the Knife. I'd like to play that for you in a variety of ways. First, the traditional way, and then I'll play it like a waltz by Johann Strauss. And then I'll play it like a miniature wind-up music box that people used to keep in their homes. And then I'll play it like a Latin bossa nova. And then the good old American boogie woogie. All to Mac the Knife.
One more? I think Bill would let you have as many as you want.
Well, another very popular song that Bill really enjoyed. Maybe many of you remember this by the Cuban composer Raton, called Malagueña. It's very popular. I played this for him when Raton, he was in Spain, traveled through Spain. He was in the town of Malaga and heard this wonderful, exciting music. So we wrote a piano piece off of that everybody loved in this country. I'd like to play it for you.
great talent. Bill surrounded himself with great people, great talents, but also just ordinary people too. We miss him, and we thank God that He gave him to us for 93 years. And we had him here about 60 of those years. So, again, we mentioned the city of Raton that has always supported the Shuler Theater. As a matter of fact, the city went and recruited Bill to come back in 1988, I believe, to run the Shuler for the city. They've always been very, very supportive. As a matter of fact, the city, if you go out on your way out, you may have already gotten a drink there. That is the Bill Fegan Kaleidoscope Room, is what that is. And it's in his honor. It used to be his office, and it's a little bit changed if you remember his office. So again, thanks to the city, we saw Mayor Neil Sagata, wife Terry was here too, and Ron Chavis and Debbie were here too in support. So thank you again. That's it. What more can we do? We're onward. Next Sunday, August 29th, music from Angel Fire is here. And it's a free concert, Sunday, 3 p.m., music from Angel Fire. And then also, Raton Main Street is bringing, you may have heard of them, the Bellamy Brothers to the Shuler. And that's going to be on September the 5th. So tickets are going real quick. I don't know, Gilbert may have some in the back there.
No, I don't. There's only 10 left at the gallery.
Only 10?
That's it.
Okay. Going to be a sellout. All right. Thank you again, and thank God for Bill Fegan and for people like him to keep it going. Good night. Be safe.